Well, hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Luke Reacts. I am Luke Moon, Executive Director of the Philos Project. Big, big news from the Near East. The political leader, the number one of Hamas, is dead. He died. He's unalive, as the kids say these days. It is quite a momentous day, and it's big news. It comes, interestingly enough, a few hours after the death of the unaliving, again, as the kids say, of the number two for Hezbollah. This guy, the guy from Hamas, he was killed in Tehran. The guy from Hezbollah, he was killed in Beirut. The dude from Hezbollah, he was off visiting his mistress, right? This is a warning. Don't get a mistress and don't go off to play with her when you have just killed a bunch of Druze kids, if that's where you're going. So don't do that. But here we are. And I want to start off by talking about, before I get into these guys and all that sort of stuff, I do want to start with the fact that it's important to look at this from a Christian perspective or a biblical perspective, however you want to describe yourself, biblical or Christian, or none of that also, I guess. So there's a verse that comes to mind whenever there's some big, the death of somebody significant. This happened when Osama bin Laden was killed. I remember, there was people ran out to the piece of, the street in front of the White House to celebrate the death of bin Laden. And I remember there was a bunch of, Christian leaders that were saying, oh, we can't celebrate the death of the wicked. It's really important that we, make sure our hearts are right. It's all terrible. So I just wanted to unpack a couple of passages of scripture related to this real quick. And then I'll tell you about why the assassination of the Hamas guy is significant to the politics and all that. So there is a verse. It's in the book of Ezekiel. And it does say, got glasses on here so I can read this. It's Ezekiel chapter 18, verses 23. Have I any pleasure in the death of the wicked, declares the Lord, and not rather that he turn from his ways and live? Okay. So it's like there's a little bit of admonishment there. And then in Proverbs, in Proverbs chapter 24, it says, this one's verse 17. Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and don't let your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it and be displeased and turn away his anger from him. Right? So I don't think, just so you know, just a little bit of Bible interpretation here. I don't think falls in that passage means death. Okay? Because well, how could God turn his wrath away from the wicked if he's already dead? He's gonna suddenly get into heaven because a bunch of people were like, yeah, that bad dude's dead. No, I think it's like you see a wicked person, they fall down. They not that they're dead, but they get their comeuppance is a word. No, I think it means they in that way. I think it means like they're not dead. So there's that. One more passage. So we're going to create this kind of collection here, and then we'll kind of talk about them. Also from Proverbs. All right. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices. And when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. All right. So how is it that um, that we have this kind of on? How do you understand how we should react personally to the death of a wicked person like Ismail Haniyeh and this other guy from Hezbollah, Fuad? Right? How should we talk about this? Well, let's go back to Ezekiel real quick. Ezekiel, that whole section of Ezekiel is actually talking about the transformation of the heart of the person who is behaving either righteously or wickedly. Okay, so it says further up this is Ezekiel 18. It says in verse 21, so a couple of passages before, but if a wicked person turns away from all his sin as committed and keeps all of my statutes and does what is just and right, he shall surely live, and he shall not die. None of the transgressions that he has committed will be remembered against him. For the righteousness that he has done, he shall live. So he's saying if the wicked person turns away from his wickedness and becomes righteous, then his all the stuff that he had done in the past is remembered no more, which is amazing. It's like it's so much grace right there. So much that is like if you were a bad person in your past, and you have turned away from that wickedness and are now living in righteousness according to the guidance of God, God remembers your wickedness no more. Wow, it's amazing. Okay, then we get to 23, which I just read. Have I any pleasure in the death of the wicked, declares the Lord, and not rather that he shall turn away from his way and live? But here's where it continues. So you get some more context here. But when the righteous person turns away from his righteousness and does injustice and does the same abomination that the wicked person does, shall he live? None of the righteous deeds that he has done shall be remembered, for the treachery of which he is guilty and the sins he has committed, for them he shall die. Right? So it basically is saying, here's what it's saying. If the wicked becomes righteous, God will remember their wickedness no more. If the righteous become wicked, he shall remember their righteousness no more. Does the Lord celebrate their wickedness? No, because he doesn't want them to go down that road. He wants them to turn and live and to remember their wickedness no more. Right? So you get that. To me, I think that's very helpful to understand the context about whether or not to celebrate the wicked, because it's clear also in Proverbs that when the wicked perish, that the town celebrates, the people celebrate when the wicked perish. And if the wicked fall and stumble, like there is a point. And a lot of people, for many years I was a missionary, right? So I would. There's a lot of testimonies. I listened to testimonies. I was involved in evangelism and saw people's lives turned around, and by rejecting their wickedness of their past, that's what they did. And so I think that's where we're not celebrating the death of the wicked as the means by which, listen, I guess if Hamas guy number one decided that he was going to turn from his wicked ways and decide to love Jewish people in Israel, that God would forgive him for his wickedness. That's what Ezekiel says, and I have to agree with that. And as a Christian, you have to agree with that. But he didn't. And instead, you have the wicked man of the town who is now dead, and the village is rejoicing. Now, don't rejoice so much that you get proud and haughty, okay? But it is, I think, important to recognize that this is a very important occasion. Not something to gloat about, but something to. I think it's important to. I don't know. I'm happy I am. I'm happy that Ismail Haniyeh is dead. There's a lot of there's some funny jokes going around X, formerly Twitter, right? There's a funny one of him entering the paradise and getting his 72 virgins, and it's a bunch of people saying, "Welcome to our our magic gathering." Okay, maybe that's not that funny, but I thought it was funny. Or that the Israel just won gold in long distance shooting. That's kind of funny. All right, because it's Olympics. It's funny. All right. Okay. Enough of those. So who is this Hamas number one guy? So he was in Tehran, which is the capital of Iran. He was there for the inauguration of the new president of Iran. The former president of Iran was killed in a helicopter crash a few months ago, where in fog they ran into a mountain. Okay, and he died. And subsequently, they had elections, and the new guy won. And the new guy was the new guy, and the inauguration was this week. And so not only was Ismail Haniyeh in town for that, but so was the leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And they were actually both in the same house that was hit by a rocket, but only the Hamas guy died, which should scare the Palestinian Islamic Jihad guy pretty well. Also over in Beirut, over in Lebanon, the number one of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, should be I suspect he's being very, very careful today about his location, his whereabouts, who knows where he is, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's a bad day to be a leader of a proxy terrorist organization of proxy of Iran. So it's a tough day for those guys. So here you have. So what do you got? You have this guy Ismail Haniyeh. So there are those who are saying that, hey, listen, this guy was not bad. He was just he was a moderate. He was interested in the peace of his people. He was a good guy. He was negotiating the ceasefire. The stuff that all the kids on campuses are calling for. The people who protested yesterday at the Christians United for Israel conference. Those guys, they just want a ceasefire, just like Ismail Haniyeh wants a ceasefire. Well, let me share this video with you of what Ismail Haniyeh says, because I think it kind of undermines what that is. Watch this.
كما قلت وفي كل مرة أكرر إن دماء الأطفال والنساء والشيوخ لا أقول تستصرخكم، بل نحن الذين نحتاج هذه الدماء لكي توقظ فينا روح الثورة، لكي توقظ فينا العناد، لكي توقظ فينا التحدي والسير إلى الأمام. You might so if you don't speak Arabic, I don't either. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you saw the subtitles, and here's what he says. He basically says, I'm gonna kind of smash that up a little bit. He says, the blood of women and children and elderly, we are the ones who need their blood to awaken within us the revolutionary spirit. It's celebrating the death of women, children, and elderly. And what have we seen and heard basically since October 7th? Once Israel started responding to Hamas, what did we start seeing? Oh, the death of women and children and elderly, and here's how bad it is. And here's the number one political leader of Hamas saying, we need those women and children to die. We need their blood, because with their blood, it motivates us
it's celebrating the death of women and children as a cause, as a justification. That kind of stuff. That is not the kind of thing that is what you would find from, I would say, a moderate. I mean, maybe you would, if a moderate Islamist, but if that's moderation, geez, I wonder what extremism is. It's rubbish. Anybody who's telling you that this guy Ismail Haniyeh was a moderate is rubbish. Okay. So here's the thing. It is likely that this will have rippling impact for a while in several ways. Okay. First, Ismail Haniyeh was the chief negotiator for the ceasefire agreements between, if you have been seeing in the news, Hamas and Israel are negotiating a ceasefire, or the Biden administration, we're working with our Iranians to for the ceasefire. That kind of stuff, right? If that's what we are, he was the guy who is leading that, and if he's leading that and he's dead, it means that we have there's that will impact the negotiations pretty significantly, right? Because you don't have that guy anymore. And one of the things that I think is often overlooked is how much leadership matters in these types of things. Leadership, people are not just plug and play. Take some guy, put him somewhere else, and he's like, natural leaders are natural leaders. That's why you find oftentimes, these, things like, the BDS on college campuses, when it would go from University of California at Davis, and then it would next, that would be the hot point for it. And then it would move to, somewhere in Illinois, and then it would move back to California, and then it would move to, some school somewhere like North Carolina or something like that. It would move around. Why? Because the natural leaders would they would rise up, and then once they graduated, the person who was supposed to be number two didn't have that natural leadership capability like the other person did, and they would not be able to sustain. And that's the reality. That's the way it works. That's why you have these one of the things that happens in like mega churches or big Christian ministries is they like to pass them on to their kids, right? Here's this, I'm going to retire. And my son or my daughter is going to take over the family business or the ministry or whatever. And it just doesn't work, because you don't get leadership matters a lot in this. So there's the fact that he is gone is huge. Okay. Same with the guy from Hezbollah in Beirut. Again, killed yesterday as well. He was responsible he was the guy behind all of the precision rocket and missile systems that Hezbollah has aimed at Israel. And it's a big deal, because he was also the kind of conciliary to Nasrallah, who is the number one of Hezbollah. And he was the main advisor, and he's gone. And it was, again, taken out by a rocket in Beirut. The guy who runs the Houthis down in Yemen, he's probably not sleeping well. Nasrallah, he's probably not sleeping well. Palestinian Islamic Jihad guy, he's not sleeping well. Bad day to be a bunker buddy with the Islamists. Okay, what else we got related to this? What other things will be impacted? How will this shape the conversation in the next few days? Well, it's clear that the world is watching the American elections. Okay. There's now, we're down to two candidates. Well, it's still not official on the Democratic side, but it's likely, in the 95 to 98% range, likely that Kamala Harris will be the nominee for the Democratic Party. And they're going to, supposedly by Tuesday, she's going to pick a vice presidential nominee for the Democrats, and they're going to be out campaigning leading up to the Democratic National Convention. Now, Iran, China, the cartels on the southern border are all watching this election. Why? Because they know what the two sides are going, how their disposition towards the world is already looking like Ukraine and Russia, actually. As soon as it looked like Trump was going to win, this is before Biden stepped down, and it was looking like it was going to be a clean, particularly after the assassination attempt, looked like it was going to be just Trump's going to pick up so many states and electoral college and popular vote and all that sort of stuff. The president of Ukraine was suddenly hey, maybe we should start negotiating. We should start negotiating with Russia a peace deal of some kind. Maybe this war isn't going to last. Maybe the money's not going to keep flowing in. That was in news today. Same thing. News today out of Ukraine is talks on peace talks. Why? Because it's clear that the elections the Ukrainians and the Russians are looking at the elections. So how do you think the elections are going to play out or impact Iran? Well, I think the Iranians are looking at this, and Israel are looking at this in two different ways, or two ways that are interesting. Let's say that Iran is looking at this as, if Trump comes in, it will be there. The spigot is cut off. Every month, the U.S. releases Iran to allow it to sell billions of dollars worth of oil. And those billions of dollars then get, they obviously go into the coffers of the Iranian Republican Guard, and it also goes into the coffers of the proxies in the region that are being destabilized by Iran. And they know that a Trump administration is going to cut them off, because Trump has said that. Trump has been very favorable, very clear that he's favorable towards Israel, has said that this would never have happened. October 7th and the subsequent stuff would never have happened while he was president. I don't know if that's true or not. It's kind of irrelevant because he wasn't. But looking at the future, they know that the Trump administration's tore up the Iran deal and applied sanctions that were really, really hurting Iran, and really starving the country of the money they need, and the proxies were on their heels. Now, since the Biden administration has come in, it's been a totally different, releasing billions of dollars that were either in assets, or allowing them to sell oil, which they say, it's for medicine and whatever, but it never goes there. It goes to the proxies. That's been the reality with Iran. You even have, last week, there was a general with the BBC, not with the BBC, but a general from there was a general from Lebanon, the General Secretary, Major General Abbas Ibrahim, said on BBC, we're not talking Russia Today. We're not talking some obscure, media outlet. We're talking BBC, said that the U.S. envoy, Amos Hochstein, provided information about Israeli plans of attack on Lebanon and warned the Lebanese about what if Israel was going to attack. Now, if that's true, then that dude should get fired. He's special envoy for energy. He negotiated this helped to negotiate this deal for offshore gas. They found a bunch of natural gas off the coast of Lebanon and Israel, and they had negotiations on how they share that. And the negotiations were actually Hezbollah was involved in those negotiations because Hezbollah was a political party in in Lebanon. And so he helped negotiate this Amos guy helped negotiate that. And this general from Lebanon is saying that every time Israel was gonna attack Lebanon, he let us know. That's sounds shady to me. But so you have this kind of this is what's coming out of this administration, this kind of like very coddling of Iran. Rarely do they say anything against Iran, even when they're talking about the Houthis. We have done more fighting with the Houthis. It's like the most fighting we've done in terms of like Air Force sorties than since someone said since World War II. It seems absurd, thinking all the wars we had, but it's a lot. And it's Iran, the Houthis are supported by Iran, and the U.S. administration basically cut off funding for the good guys in Yemen who are on the side of the Saudis. And we put an arms embargo against U.S. weapons given to Saudi Arabia that could be used in that civil war. So we're letting the Houthis, run wild. We're letting Hezbollah run wild, and Hamas has also been a proxy of Iran. So there is this. Iran is really concerned that the Trump administration would cut him off. On the Biden administration side, or the future Harris administration side, it's been very clear in numerous comments that Vice President Harris has made, both publicly and privately, that she would not only continue the Iran policy of the Biden administration, but that she would have a much more aggressive stance towards Israel. Basically, she's not a fan of Israel. Yes, her husband's Jewish. Potentially, she brings on Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania as her running mate, who's also Jewish. But will it be enough? Will it change the administration's tone towards make it softer in Israel? No, that's not been nothing in the rhetoric, nothing in the hires, nothing in the people, personnel is policy, nothing in the people they have in the wings say anything more favorable towards Israel. All right. So you can imagine that not only is Iran looking at the U.S. elections, but Israel is too. So Netanyahu's calculation here is one in the direction of he's got a window. He's got a window of 100 days where he's still with the Biden administration, knows what Trump's going to do, doesn't know what Harris is going to do. And that plays into this calculation. I'm sure. It has to. It's just it's the way it works. All right. So now what? Where does this go? One of the things that I would say a bunch of this came about because of the killing of the 12 kids playing soccer in Israel last week. Up on the Golan, there were Druze. Now, Druze is a minority religion in the whole region. There's Druze in Syria, there's Druze in Lebanon, there's Druze in Israel. One of the beliefs in the Druze is that you submit to the government that you're under, right? So they will, they will, and not just submit, but like actively defend in a sense, right? So the Druze of Lebanon are in the Lebanese army. The Druze of Syria are in the Syrian army. The Druze of Israel are in the Israeli army, because they that's part of their belief system, and they tend to be also in the mountains. Now, I think one of the equations that Hezbollah was making and Israel was making is that the Druze were very angry about what happened to their kids, and the one of the natures of the minority religions is that you tend to have to punch above your weight, if you will. Years ago, there was a Druze kid that was killed by Palestinians, and they had taken his body. In order to, in response, this is in Israel. In response, the Druze in Israel kidnapped 4 Palestinian kids, men, actually, young men, put guns to their head and recorded a video saying, "You got 24 hours to return the body of our guy." And you can imagine the Palestinians did. Okay. Within hours of the attack or the killing of the kids in Israel, the Druze in Lebanon released a video basically saying, "You have unlocked the gates of hell on yourselves. We will destroy you." And it's somewhat ironic that they reference the gates of hell, because one of the shrines for the Druze is just above this place in Israel called Caesarea Philippi. And if you know Caesarea Philippi in the Bible, it's the place where Jesus, where Peter says to Jesus that you are the Messiah. And Jesus says to him in response, "Peter, on you I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against you." And the gates of hell was actually like an actual spot. If you ever come to Israel with me, I'll take you there. And it's a cave called the gates of hell. And the whole rock wall that's next to the gates of hell there was a bunch of shrines and basically worship center for the Greek god Pan, from which you get panic. It's the gates of hell. The reference to that is very interesting, because right above the gates of hell, up above on the rock wall, is one of the shrines for the Druze. They believe Jethro is their guy. Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, is one of their like patriarchs, if you will. They believe in reincarnation. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting religion. Bunch of the kids though died, and they're responding accordingly. So you have this situation in which the Druze are a calculation. The American elections are a calculation, and the ongoing potential negotiations and all that sort of stuff. All that plays into this moment, and then you got to ask, well, what's going to be the retaliation? Now, here it is. We're still mourning in morning time in the U.S. This happened. The assassination happened roughly, let's say, around 11 p.m. East Coast time last night. A little bit earlier than that, but that's when it was announced. And 12 hours later, we're still talking about what the retaliation might be. Khomeini, the Ayatollah Khomeini, probably is more accurate way to pronounce that. I'm terrible with names, which is why you probably noticed that I don't keep saying the people's names, because I'm so bad with names. I don't have that newscaster understanding of people's names. But Khomeini says following the bitter, tragic event which is taking place within the borders of the Islamic Republic, it is our duty to take revenge. Okay, so he's saying revenge is coming, and then they have this. They have in one of their main mosques, like the well known mosque, Jemkaran Mosque. They drug out the flag. Get out the flag. Get the flag, guys. We got to get the flag. So supposedly there's this flag of revenge. It's a red flag. It says something in Arabic on it. I can't make it out, but we'll post it here next to me. But it's, they went into the closet and got out the flag of revenge, and they put it up on top of the mosque. This is like Game of Thrones stuff, I guess. But I suspect that what we're going to have soon is these is this what we're going to have soon? Is this retaliation of some kind? Like it's Iran and the Hezbollah aren't going to let this stand. At the same time, they're not as they're advanced, sure, but are they advanced as Israel is at this point? I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, Israel's been now at war with the Iranian proxies now for 9 months. Okay. They had incredible tech before, the Iron Dome and whatever, but in the last time, think about all the AI tech that has shown up on your devices in the last 9 months. Like unrelated to the war in Israel. But we're talking like, on every social media thing I have, it has this some AI thing showing up. Yeah, like no doubt AI is used in this in war, and the innovation that has come on Israel's behalf related to AI and tech and this kind of very strategic killing. I mean, the fact that they took out this guy's apartment in, well, I guess the apartment of his mistress in southern Lebanon or southern Beirut, and you look at the video and it's basically just the apartment that was there. It's pretty amazing. Took out the house, not the whole house, just the room in which the Hamas guy was. Now, did they also want to get the guy from Palestinian Islamic Jihad? Well, I suspect they probably didn't know he was there, or they would have blown up the whole house. So you have a very a situation in which we're going to have to see this unfold in front of us, but there's so much playing into this that it's really important that we there's two things. One is that we, stay abreast of the news, keep following what you see here at the Philos Project. We're putting stuff out as it comes. We are also, to my earlier point, the way I started this, trying to look at some of this stuff through the lens of Scripture. Some of the stuff that came to mind as I was thinking about how to talk about this stuff through the lens of the Bible is, in the book of Joshua, the killing of kings. There was a guy who had, stabbed in, a meeting, a king that was killed, and, he was really fat. So the fat kind of went around the knife or something gross like that. That's what it says. But you have, I think it's important anytime that we look at events. There's a lot of organizations out there who will give you all the political analysis, all the, the backroom, international relations, public policy, foreign affairs, all that sort of stuff. But I think it's important that we do our best to think about this, or try and think about this through the lens of Scripture. What does Scripture provide us? What tools do we have? How do we look at this through the lens of Scripture? And, that's going to be where I'm going to try and camp out here. So for the next few days, feel free to also comment in the comment section. If you think I'm interpreting the Scripture wrong on the stuff I read, let me know. I love to talk theology. Love to talk theology about all things related to, I just love to talk theology. Also philosophy. I like the philosophy too, but theology is really gets me going. And I would love to talk with you all about some of this stuff. And how do we look at it? Because I do think it's important that we recognize that our unique contribution to this conversation as Christians needs to be rooted in our understanding of the Bible. And again, not everybody at the Philos Project reads and interprets Scripture in the same way. We have Protestants like me. We have Catholics. We have different types of denominations. Some people are in the Reformed camp. Some people are in the Charismatic camp. All of which, but all of us are Christian, and all of us are trying to look at this through that lens as best as possible. So my hope is that you will join us, keep following us on this stuff as we try and unpack this, trying to bring in the Bible, trying to bring in this conversation. And as things unfold, we'll keep you posted. Be sure to like and subscribe to this so that you are kept abreast of the latest stuff coming from us. And also remember that we do not do this. We cannot do this without your support. And obviously, your prayer support is important for us, but also your financial support for us. Please consider a donation to the Philos Project. You can go to it on your website, philosproject.org. Philos is spelled Philos. And then project, which you probably know how to spell, .org. And at the top corner, you'll see give. Click on that button and make a donation. It'd be amazing. I appreciate that. So keep tuned to the Philos Project for all the latest and greatest. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.